if you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Putting on the Ritz.
He's been called the greatest and most influential dancer in musical film of all time. But who was Fred Astaire, the man behind the moves? What was the truth behind his complicated relationship with his wife, Phyllis? And who did this dancing champion look up to? The answers are as mesmerizing as the man himself. Welcome, I am your host, Nostalgic Nick, with the inside details about Fred Astaire, including the relationships he valued most, and also least. And what on earth do horses have to do with anything? If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up to show your support. And hey, subscribe to the channel so you never miss a deep dive. But now, without further ado, let's get groovin'. What made Fred Astaire so good? It's pretty easy to point at something all-inspiring and call it what it is. Incredible, captivating, artful. But in Fred Astaire's case, why exactly was that? Well, it all began with his core personality, which his family can give a glimpse into. His sister was none other than the stunning Adele Astaire, a triple threat on the stage in her own right. It's said she gave Fred the nickname Moaning Minnie, aka someone who's always grumbling because of an unending perfectionism. It also helped make him such a unique force of nature on the stage. Dancers need to be in complete control of every single movement, and they need to make it look very easy. Astaire had complete mastery over his posture down to the finest movement, wonderfully using his surroundings and translating music into movement. On top of that, he wowed audiences with a unique blend of ballroom dancing, ballet, and tap. To this day, dancers of any of those styles usually have to learn the other, but of course, Fred used them all to great effect. And that entire time, Fred couldn't wait to rip off those tailcoats and top hats. Who was Fred Astaire's favorite lady to dance with? In his autobiography, Steps in Time, Fred is quoted naming the talented Rita Hayworth as his favorite lady to dance with, and pretty much his favorite person, period. Their shared history actually stretches back before their first meeting. You see, Fred was a good friend of Rita's father, Eduardo Casino.
Lovely Rita Hayworth and footloose Fred Astaire.
Her big break was 1941's You'll Never Get Rich, opposite Fred Astaire. When they first met, Astaire would later recall, quote, "She learned steps faster than anyone I'd ever known. I'd show her a routine before lunch. She'd be back right after lunch and have it down to perfection. She apparently figured it out in her mind while she was eating." A year later, things were never lovelier, as the two were paired up again in, you guessed it, You Were Never Lovelier.
That's the title of our big new musical at Columbia.
The highlight was, again, Rita. He shared again, quote, "I looked forward to it, mainly because Rita was so delightful to work with. The feeling was mutual, as Rita once said, quote, I guess the only jewels of my life were the pictures I made with Fred Astaire." But even this dashing Renaissance man had his detractors, and their words could sting. Who did Fred Astaire refuse to dance with?
Does she dance very beautifully?
Astaire's favorite dance partner was not the one he most famously paired up with. But the surprises don't end there. There was a time when Fred outright refused to get paired with Ginger Rogers, aka the other half to the most famous dancing couple in the world. There is a bit of history here. You see, for years, Fred had been working with his sister, vaudeville sweetheart Adele. Their very first act was juvenile artists presenting an electric musical toe dancing novelty. Yeah, that really rolls off the tongue. In this dynamic, Fred was an afterthought. Sure, it was a partnership, but he definitely played a support role to his sister, who was considered the more talented sibling. In fact, one of the first times Fred performed without Adele, a critic slammed him by saying, quote, "Two Astaires are better than one." And this went on into their 30s, so by the time a partnership with Ginger became looming, he was kind of done being attached to a duo. And the air wasn't always clean between them either. There's a famous saying about how Ginger, quote, did the same steps as he did, only backwards and wearing high heels. It is believed Ginger said this herself, but she has denied it. Was Fred Astaire happily married? Plenty of stars commit fully to their craft and let their relationships fall by the wayside or become collateral damage on the climb to stardom. But not so for Fred, who loved being a family man. He got the chance to become a kept man after meeting socialite Phyllis Potter at a golf luncheon and marrying in 1933. The couple had 2 kids, Fred Jr. and Ava. On top of that, he even took care of Phyllis's kid from a previous relationship. By all outward appearances, Fred was smitten. It's during these married years, Fred put out some of his most famous films, like Carefree. It was a perfect fairy tale for everyone, until the clock struck midnight and night fell. It was 1956, when Phyllis died of lung cancer. Fred's grief was earth-shattering, life-changing, literally. He was so heartbroken, Fred tried to drop out of filming Daddy Longlegs. He offered to pay the production costs out of pocket just to let the pain out in some way. So it came as a huge shock to everyone when another someone special entered his life. A few decades later, Fred met Robin Smith, a jockey 45 years his junior. The two would marry in 1980, and the two bonded over a love of horses and, yet again, golf. Even though there was a past history Robin wasn't a part of, she was on good terms with the family of Phyllis, to the point where she'd get support from their son, Fred Jr., in legal battles that came flooding in when Sr. wasn't able to advocate for himself. Who inherited Fred Astaire's wealth? Besides family life, Fred was dedicated to dance. His career spanned almost 80 years, and his final film would be 1981's Ghost Story. The man was still working when he was 82 years old. Even the brightest stars go out eventually, but even after Fred Astaire passed of pneumonia at the age of 88, his light stayed shining. In good ways and bad. It's bittersweet that he was buried on the anniversary of his marriage to Robin. It was a quiet event in keeping with Fred's penchant for privacy. Before dying, he'd asked for no further plaudits. Fred did leave a sizable chunk to his kids, Junior and Ava, never thinking he would remarry. But the big part of his estate was left to Robin, who maintained control to preserve his memory. Her way of going about this was subject to debate for a bit. She said, quote, Fred left me in charge, so to speak. He said he was tired of being used. And so she operated with that in mind, supported by Fred Jr., who she called her pal. Though Robin did give the green light for a Dirt Devil vacuum cleaner commercial featuring his likeness. A move that Ava slammed as working with the devil. Pun unintended, intended, I'm not sure. Fred Astaire, lightning in a bottle personified. Larger than life, yet quietly humble when it mattered. He kept his large personality for the stage and screen, then became a man devoted to the small, happy family he built. And I think that's something we can all tip our hats to. So what do you think? Who was your favorite partner of his? And is Fred Astaire the greatest dancer of all time? Get in the comments and tell us your thoughts. Before you tap dance out of here, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss a new video. But most of all, from all of us here at Do You Remember, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap.